Hello, welcome. When I talked to Andre about sort of reaching out to me and saying, hey, you've got to come to THU, and I was like, what's THU? It's not really on my radar. It's not really on the kind of things that I normally kind of would do. And I looked into it, and I said, wow, that's an amazing place. And actually, it was something very much, actually, that I would want to do. I just didn't know about it. I work at Lego for the last 11 years. Everything I do is, like you saw from all the Disney talks, NDA, confidential, can't talk about it. So as far as most of my career works, I don't exist. Everything you do is Lego, you don't put your name on. So I am, someone hidden in the shadows. And it takes Andre or someone bumping into me at somewhere else where I'm talking to kind of find me and to invite me to a beautiful place like this. And I get to meet all you great guys and just say, wow, what you do is amazing. But really kind of, so what is it I do? And a lot of people kind of ask that. So really, what is it you do? So currently today, I'm the Director for Digital Play of Innovation at Lego, which might sound quite cool. Hopefully it does. It's actually a bit cooler than that. But again, I live in a secret bunker. What I am really at heart is a creator. I like to make stuff. I like to make toys, games, apps, companies. I like to make everything I can. And one of the things we're going to talk a bit today about is how I kind of moved over the last phase from designing kids' games, or actually just not just games but products, into wanting to teach kids how to design games. What I also discovered, you'll see a little bit in the slides, is actually I really realized when I look back that I'd kind of always been trying to do that. So it wasn't actually really a new thing, actually. It was just maybe kind of a realization. This is the house I grew up in, as painted by my father, not myself. He's a painter. And they built this house while I was about 2 years old. While they were building it, I lived in this. And yeah, it's like imagine it just being like a tent, but it was a gypsy wagon. It was in much better condition than this at the time. I just couldn't find a picture of it back from then. And then we upgraded to this, which was kind of like a carnival, like imagine it like the guy that ran the circus, his house. And that's it looks like ancient, right? I'm not that old, it just looks ancient. That's my dad, my mum, and I'm the kid at the top of the steps. I have two brothers. Sorry, the picture's so low quality. Where that's situated is a little village on the Isle of Wight, on the south coast of England. And actually, this is a picture here. You can spot me because I conveniently have a T-shirt with my name on it. This is my mum. She's a potter at this time. And you can't quite read it here, but it says Country Craft Workshops. And this was actually kind of where I grew up in. And actually, it was a centre that my parents built for craftspeople. It was a kind of a series of about 24 workshops where artisans got to basically rent the workshops and basically make their goods. And my parents ran the business and actually brought people in to kind of come and see them. They got to kind of meet them, talk to them, commission stuff, buy stuff from them, have conversations, and there was everything. There was like jewelers, watchmakers, clockmakers, sword makers, metalsmiths, woodworkers of different descriptions, leather tanners. It was just everything you could think of. So me as a kid, every day after school, every weekend, all summer, I'm just walking around in this kind of like creator's wonderland. All the kids of the creators are my friends, and we're just making stuff. I made jewelry, leather stuff, carved stuff, metal shop, you name it, I did it. But for me, that was normal. This was just life. This was just, we lived on site. So I walked out of the house, 50 yards, and it was into this and into that and sort of thing. So it really was a kind of creative upbringing. But all of these guys were not just artisans, they were business people. They were running their business, and my parents were running a business. So that entrepreneurial nature was always there. And again, my mum being the potter here, she wasn't a potter before. On the year that they opened, they couldn't find a potter. And they felt we needed a pottery. We couldn't find a potter. So my mum became the potter. And by the end of the 2 years, before we found a really great potter, my mum and dad were both incredible potters. Some of the stuff they did was amazing. And of course, they'd never done it before. They just saw the need and had to kind of fill it. On a different track, my dad, see if you can spot him, he's with the beard sat down to the right of the drums. He was an artist too, he was of the level of you guys that I've met around here. He went to art college very young because he challenged the system when he was sort of 14. He went up and he sort of walked in and saw what all the A-level, the kind of 18-year-olds were doing. And he said, I want to do that. And they said, no, because you're 14. You have to do all this other stuff first. And he said, that stuff's rubbish. I'm not doing that. And they said, no, that's what you have to do. And so he just went off and at home did the A-level, did the thing for like 3 years above at home, and then basically submitted it himself into the school system and got, of course, A+. And so he went to university at like 16, and I think he got something like 97% in his degree, which I think was some of like the top 10 highest score for any degree at the University of Manchester, which was the biggest university at that time. So it was pretty crazy. He did children's books, he wrote them, he illustrated them, he did a cartoon, which unfortunately I can't show. He worked for the BBC, for London Weekend Television. Ridley Scott was one of his junior designers at one point. He did a lot of stuff. So you can imagine that so me growing up, he was also quite humble, so I didn't know any of this, right? I didn't know any of this till I was about 14 years old, because what I knew him as was a businessman that ran this craft centre and ran the sort of thing. So I didn't know he did any of this stuff until people started showing up saying, do you listen to your dad's records? What? And then they would bring stuff out and people would come and gift them to him, and I'd be like, what is this thing? And I discovered about my father much later in life. This is also him. This is a quick shot to show you. When they talk about THU, they say it's about transformation. I actually think that just life is about transformation. And being a creative is about transforming yourself. That's me, age kind of, 10 months or something, enjoying my ice cream. Growing up on the farm, because we bought the land off a farmer, so it was actually on a farm. Growing up, you see some of my art in the background. This is getting towards that kind of 16, 17 phase. Down the bottom, you'll see painting and drawing. Much like a lot of people I see around here, at one point, all I had was my sketchbook. I was just drawing and painting all the time. I just, at some point, stopped. We'll talk about that. Later on, being at one of my kind of dream places, which was not just Lego, but at Pixar. Not working there, just getting to meet the creative people there. Here's just a quick example, but when I would draw something, I would then say, okay, I paint it, and then I would say, okay, what can I do with this? So I actually printed those up into T-shirts. And again, I discovered, but imagine this is quite a way back. So nowadays, again, yeah, of course, what did you use? This service. None of these services existed back then. There was nothing you could do. So I would go to the print shops, and they said, yes, we can do that for you. It's going to cost this. I'm like, that's way too much. So I looked around, and I found a place, and I ordered T-shirts from India. And we're talking, this is 25 years ago, and got T-shirts from there. And then I went to the print shops, and I said, okay, it costs you this to print this T-shirt. What about if I bought the paper from the same place you bought the paper, and then when you're shutting, I imagine because I knew business because my parents had a business. When you're doing the tills, you shut at 5, the tills shut at 5:30. I'll come in at 5 o'clock, and while you're shutting the tills, I'll use your machines, and I'll pay you X. And I haggled it, and I got it, and so then I was able to work out how to produce my T-shirts for about 1/5 of what it actually would have cost if I'd just taken any of the quotes. And I ran a T-shirt business. This was actually my second business, because going back to the craft centre, there you can see down here, I told you there were 24 workshops that were in there. One summer, the summer I was turning 13, so I was 12, about to turn 13, one of the craftspeople, and they made wooden toys, said, that's it, I'm done. It was a tough business, and my parents said, come on, the season's just about to start. Can't you at least stay till the end of the season? He said, no, I'm done, and he left. And they were like, what are we going to do? We can't leave. It's one of the, these workshops. We can't leave it empty. And my mum said, okay, I'll just fill it with some stuff. She did a lot of interior design. I'll fill the shop. And I said, whoa, that's my shop. And they were like, what? I was like, no, it's my shop. I said, I saw opportunity, I took it, and they said, even though my parents loved me, I'm 12, I said, this is my shop. And I said, I've been with my mum to kind of tours around, seeing when she's buying stock and doing stuff, and I said, I can do this. So I went to my bank, I had like £300, I got some catalogues, I did my research, I bought £300 worth of toys, I stocked my shop, I employed one of my friends as staff, and we opened. Back then, we had these incredible summers. I had like 8-week summer. I skipped a week of school, so I had a 9-week run of my shop, and I quadrupled my money. And I had like the best summer ever. And I was just like selling toys, making toys, running a toy shop. And then at lunchtime, I'd go, lunch, shut, and I would go to the restaurant. I could have gone to the house and made a sandwich. No, I went to the restaurant. I ordered from the restaurant. I was living it up. And so that was my first business. This was actually the T-shirts was my second business. In the meantime, you discover talents in your life. I discovered way up in the top left here, that's me age 5 or 6 or something like that, winning the egg and spoon race. I discovered at some point that I had a natural gift to run. And here's me running, and here's me winning some medals, and this led me on, here's me doing, it's not high jump, it's long jump. I could actually long jump over the high jump bar up to about a meter something sort of thing. I ran for England. I went around the world. I competed multinational events, some great events, met some great people. And one of the things I still find funny when people say, okay, sounds good, you were good. But this was me, so again, under 13, so I'm 12. So this is when I have my toy shop. If you look at the top left there, I'm basically just about a second and a half faster than the next best 400-meter runner. And this is not that year, this is ever. So I'm a second and a half faster than the next fastest 400 guy ever. And I'm not trying to do it to show off. I just literally was. And that was one of the things for me. It was quite a hard thing for me to discover because, as I told you, I'm a creator, I'm a creative. Athletics was so black and white. You were either faster or you weren't. It was like the polar opposite of literally where my brain was. And despite this and despite doing all the other stuff, I chose to leave and to stop running. And everybody was like, but why? Why? What are you doing? I got to that point. I'd qualified for the Olympics. Some of my friends that had never beaten me went to the Olympics a couple of years later. And I said, why did you stop? And I said, life is about discovering yourself, discovering who you are and what you can do. I already knew that I was one of the best in the world at running around a piece of rubber in a circle, like really fast, right? And I just went, I know that now. I do not need to spend another 10 years either knowing that again or proving it to someone else. I proved it to myself. It was like, tick, okay, you're fast. Tick, next. And I moved on. And one of the toughest decisions for me was actually that I went to art college. And I say, why is that a tough decision? Well, I just told you that my father that went on, he was like one of you. He was amazing. And I knew that I would probably never be as good an artist as he would be. But I didn't allow that to stop me trying. So I went off, and the reason I bring this up is that he's still painting today. He paints and opens his gallery 7 days a week, every day. He's now mid-80s, and he's an inspiration, and I think to all of us, because when he was 60, he had his second heart attack, and they looked at him and they said, dude, you need some work done. And he was like, I'm busy. And they were like, no, like we need to replace your arteries. You need at least like a double heart bypass. It's like we're counting the days here. And he's like, I told you I'm busy. And he said, I've got to do this. I'm selling the business. When that's all done, then I'll give you a call. And they're like, no, you're going to die. And he was like, yeah, I'll get back to you. So he finally finished that up. He sold the business, and then he rang them up and he said, okay, I can come to the hospital now. And he came to the hospital, and they got him in there, and they said, whoa, okay, you should have come in when we told you to. It's a quadruple heart bypass. And he was like, I won't swear, but he did. Basically, so they had him on the table, and he was cut from ankle to here, because they had to take all the artery out of his leg, and they took his heart out, replumbed it, all 4 arteries, put it back in. And I came to see him the day after the surgery in the hospital, and he was sat in the chair next to the bed. And I said to the nurse, I said, why is he out of the chair? And she just looked at me and went, you try and get back into bed. I'm done. And I was like, yeah, okay, I can understand that. I just spoke to him. I said, Dad, you've got to look after yourself, man. And he was just like, but these nurses, they keep telling me to do stuff. And he doesn't like being told what to do. Apparently that's genetic. But basically, the worst bit is that I came back like 4 days later to check again. I was 200 and something miles away at university, so I couldn't come every day. I came back 4 days later. They said he'd be in bed for 2 weeks. Came back 4 days later, he was gone. And you can imagine what I felt. I stood there at his bed, and he was not there. And I was like, fuck. I was like, how did no one tell me? And I went to find the nurse. I said, what happened to my father? And they were like, he left. And I said, what do you mean he left? He can't walk. He cannot stand up. How can he leave? She said, 3 guys came in and carried him out. And he called 3 of his friends and said, like, this is a place of death. I want to live. Get me out of here. And I rang home immediately to my mum, and I was like, Mum, put Dad on the phone. Put him on the phone right now. I'm going to just tear his ear off. He was down the pub. He wasn't even at home in the house. He was at the pub. He'd been carried to the pub by probably the same 3 guys. And the doctor said, like, literally, you stop doing everything that you do. You stop having a nice pint and a nice whiskey at the end of the day. You stop doing this. You start eating better. You do all these things. You exercise, or you're just not going to last 5 years. And he said, I'd rather die. And they're like, oh, and he said, no. He said, like, I want to live. I don't want what you talked about. That's not living. And they said, well, we hope that you don't. But literally, like, I think they were down to minutes. I think probably how their estimation. That was 24 years ago. And he never did change. And I think you could say, well, what was different then? And it was basically that he'd sold his business and he started painting again. And I tell you what, painting is what he lives for. So, creativity, it can save your life. I, of course, have creative kids. And you say, of course, I had 2 brothers. My 2 brothers didn't go into creativity or the arts. They've been very successful. They've done very different things. 2 of my boys here, painting away here, not as a post sort of thing. They're also playing games, making making fun films and sort of stuff. They do a lot of that, but I came to realize that it's not entirely genetic, and it's certainly not just environment. Some people just are, and some people aren't, and I think we need to embrace that. But a lot of people could be, and actually really struggle. Sorry, here's one quick thing. This is different generations. So my eldest son, is also called Cephas. And as you saw, my dad is called Cephas, so there's a bit of a, family tradition going on here. It actually goes back a long, long way. It's a long line of Cephas Howards. But actually, you can see here is Cephas is 8. He's just turned 8 here. These are some of his drawings, and that's his painting of the cow on the left, inspired by his grandfather's work, sort of thing. But hopefully, we'll see what he'll do. But I think he's off to a good start. At this point, I went off to The Guardian, and this was from university, so I'd gone off to art college. I'd done well there. I discovered that I loved art. I did a lot of different types of art, printmaking, lithography, etching. I tried stained glass. I tried everything just to see what it was. But what I really missed was that commercial side that I'd grown up around and grown up with. I felt that art, just for art's sake, was amazing, but it wasn't for me. I needed to create for a reason. So I ended up going down to the Guardian newspapers to see if I could get some work experience, mostly because my dad told me I had to go to London. I was quite happy in the north at the time. He said, you've got to go to London. I was like, yeah, I don't really have to go to London. He said, you've got to go to London. I said, okay, I'll cut you a deal. I'll apply to one place in London. And that's my kind of compromising. So he said, okay. So I applied to the Guardian, and they said, well, we don't do like work placements. I was looking for my work placement. They said, but you can come in for a week, and we'll give you some stuff to do, unpaid. I was like, sure. Came in, did a week, and at the end of the week, they said, hey, you know what you're doing. Do you want to stay another week? I said, yeah, but you've got to pay me. And then they were like, okay, we can sort that out. So suddenly I was like freelance. And then at the end of 2 weeks, they said, hey, you have to go back to university. I was already supposed to be still at university. When I told the head of my course, hey, I'm going to go down to London and talk to the Guardian, he said, no, you're not. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, it's not, wait till the end of term time. I said, well, apparently, I can get an interview now, like tomorrow. I'm going to go and get on the train. And he's like, no, wait till the end of the year. So, of course, I got on the train. So I'd already been gone 2 weeks. I was still doing my work. I was getting a friend to basically call me and tell me what I needed to do, and I was sending it up, and he was handing it in for me. And this kind of one day, go down and talk to them, it turned into 1 week, it turned into 2 weeks, it turned into 2 months, it turned into 18 months. And then I decided I like to finish what I do, so I really found I had to finish my degree, even though I'd got the job and I was already rising, and I didn't really need the degree anymore because I had the job, and the degrees to kind of get the job, but I like completing what I do. So I went back and I completed the degree, but I didn't leave my job, so I did both at the same time. I worked out at the end of it that I went 3 years without a day off, but at the time I was just doing it. It was just what needed to be done. So it was a bit of a crazy period. I did lots of fun stuff, from advertorial shoots, magazines, books, all sorts of things. And I just grabbed these. I found them in my portfolio. The funny thing was, so There's one on the left, this shoot. They're all models and it's all sort of thing, but this was my flat. So again, when it was like, fine location, but we only had a day, I was like, we'll shoot it at my place. So it was always about kind of trying to make compromise. This one, again, books of the century. I'd just been playing around with Photoshop and things like that, so I made the illustration. This one was a fun one. I was doing a book jacket here. I also like to work at speed, so I don't really kind of take a lot of time. So this one here, a friend of a friend said, I've got this brother-in-law, his name's Raymond Curry, and he's doing this, he wants to do this book, but he's talked to the publishers and they can't get it through the art teams in time, and he wants to get it out before the second Dan Brown book. Would you talk to him? So I met him for a drink, and I said, okay, he said it's a bit of a rush. How long have we got? He was like, 5 days. I was like, okay. And that was from the first conversation. So I had some ideas, and I basically, I just, having read some of the book, I read it that night, I got this idea of this Templar's helm, and it was so visual in my head, this idea of what this helm was. I thought, I'll just find that and do it. I could not find this image anywhere, and I was searching and searching and searching. Fortunately, by then we had the internet, and I didn't find the image on the internet. I found this picture of this guy at a medieval recreation event wearing, I was like, he knows what it's about. Even though everyone else was saying, these are Templar, I was like, that guy knows what a Templar helm is. And apparently he'd made it himself. But basically, I managed to track the event. This was an event. I rang the event people, and they happened to say, I don't know that guy, but I know the guy he's with. I managed to phone him. He found the guy. So I'm ringing this guy up, and he was in like Bulgaria. And fortunately, he spoke a few words of English. And I'm like, hi, yes, I need the helmet that you have. And he's just like, what? As you can imagine. And then I arranged for a photographer to get over there. Again, I never didn't know the photographer, found a photographer in Bulgaria. Go in there, take a picture of this guy, has helmet at his house. He wouldn't relinquish it, so it was his house. Send those pictures to me, and I still managed to get that in 5 days for the cover of the, and Photoshop it for the thing. Plus, I was designing all the book layout in the meantime. So I don't think, I like to think anything is impossible. And when you look at things like this spy games thing, you look at it, and a lot of people look at it and go, yeah, of course, it's a scan of like the spy thing. Do you know how hard it was to get hold of a gun? This wasn't like we made this image. It was not like found on stock photography. I had to get all that stuff. I had to get an X-ray machine. Trying to talk to people at X-ray machines. Can I borrow your X-ray machine for a minute? It's like, what? So it's all about kind of like trying to do these things. So these days now, you just look at that and just go, yep, that was like, that was Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible was trying to get that shot. But we did it. This was a really fun instance here. I'm always doing these magazines and trying to make them interesting. In these things, you're doing the layout, you're coming up with new layouts each time, you're doing the font choices, you're doing all this sort of stuff. But one of the interesting things is you always find these pieces that are just so dry. So this was about like ethical investment, and I was like, oh. And I was filling like multiple magazines, so it wasn't just like one challenge, it was just like a particular sticker. And I strangely came up with this idea, just at the top of my head, which was about this idea of origami money, about sort of things. So it's putting your money into kind of like trees and these types of things. And once it had gone in my head, I couldn't get it out of my head. So I had to find someone that could do origami and fast. So I'm ringing around, and eventually I got hold of this guy, and he was like, he does origami. And I explained the idea to him, and he was like, that's a really cool idea. I said, yeah, trouble is I need it in like 2 days. And he's like, oh, okay. And I said, have you ever done some of these things before? Or like, he said, done origami, but I've not done a tank before, all these things. And I said, oh yeah, and the other thing, you need to make it in money. And he's like, oh, okay then. And I said, and I haven't got time to get you the money, because he was in Deep Cornwall. So he had to go, one phone call, I had to convince this guy, who I'd never met before on the phone, to go down to the bank, take out this money. This tank is like 4 50-pound notes, right? So he had to go down there, take out all this cash from his bank account, use that cash to make this art, and then put it in an envelope and send it to me. And he did, because the payment systems. I've got my friend here at Disney laughing. He didn't get his money back for like quite some months. You've got to sell it. I had to he was as captivated by the idea as me, so he actually invested in this. It cost him money before it got money. I had the pleasure of working with eBoy back in the day. Had this idea to do one of their things to do like a Where's Waldo, hide these Renaults in the city. I was always trying to have fun with the briefs that we had. It ran on it was one of the first advertisements you ever had in the center of the broadsheet. This was kind of like the 2 center pages of the newspaper, which were color. It's massive. It's like this big. Are kind of like fairly sacrosanct. It's where the best photographers get to put their stuff. But I managed to sell it as a concept where we had put some advertising, but it's fun advertising. We won some awards for this. And we saw a spike in the Renault Modus' sales. That's what I always look for. This was really fun, working with an incredible illustrator called Jonathan Edwards. If you don't know of him, look him up, he's incredible. I managed to I'd worked with him a couple of times, but it was early in his career. And I had this idea to do this book about all these sayings we know, like hair of the dog. Where does that come from? Wouldn't that be fun? So the etymology of all these sayings, and put them in great illustration. We made that as a book, and imagine, you see there with the Nissan, it was a way to kind of capture and sell and encapsulate advertising. So it was basically advertising, but actually we had, for the next 6 months, people ringing up saying, I spilled some coffee on my copy of this one. Can I have like another one, please? Or like, can I have 2 for my friends? And literally, we'd never had this before. This was like advertising, and people were just like ringing us constantly to try and get hold of copies. So when you can do great art, you can do great things. I probably need to speed up. This is just as well where you can explore through your art. So I had this idea to do with my editorial friend Nick, to do these escapes. So again, where some people so Nissan come in, say, we've got this new car, the X-Trail. What should we do? And I said, well, what is it about? So it's about sports and it's about adventure. All the cars say these type of things. And he said, okay, well, how could we do something fun with that? So we said, I bet there's all these amazing adventurous things that you could do just around the corner from you, but you don't do it or you don't know it's there. So how about if we kind of told people and kind of inspired them to get out and do these things? And that involved me, the photographer, and my friend, the writer, going around the country for the next 3 weeks, basically trying to kill ourselves. I have vertigo. I jumped out of planes. The worst one was downhill mountain biking. That was definite. Nearly died 3 times on the way down there. Nearly drowned a couple of times doing this, but it was free climbing, land yachting. We did it all. It was pretty crazy. And again, like I said, you can see I'm also in the photos, but I'm art directing the shoots as well. And then something popped up, bit you've been waiting for probably, Lego. The top bit is the Lego from my childhood, the stuff that kind of got me hooked on it. And then you see later down, by the time I was joining the company, Classic Space had become Star Wars. Castle was still there, but it was kind of new and improved. But in my job interview, basically, and actually this is the only job interview I've ever had in my entire life. I've always just found a way to do what I want to do. This was the only time I actually had to sit down and do an interview, only time I've ever written a CV. And they came in and they said, okay, Lego is toy of the century. I was like, okay, I didn't know that, but I knew it was pretty cool. And they said, so the job advert said, come to Lego, Blue Sky Thinking, work in the Future Lab, and create the future of play at Lego. I was like, okay, that sounds pretty amazing. But I actually had to be convinced to apply for it because I was busy about to build my own company, and I just happened to see this ad when I was reading a magazine, and I told my brother about it over dinner, and he said, what did you put in the application? I said, I didn't apply. And he's like, that was what you always wanted to do as a kid. This was like your dream job. And then I was like, yeah, I know, but then I did all this other stuff, and now I'm doing this other thing. And he was like, oh, man, I can't believe it. And that just stayed with me. So about a week went by, and then I was like, oh, man, now I have to apply. And I was engaged at the time, and this job was in Denmark, and my wife was American, and she was very happily moved over and ensconced in London. And I said, I think I'm going to apply for this job. And she was like, oh, really? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, go for it. And I said, well, if I get it, it's a Lego. She's like, you have to get it first. So I got it. That became a different conversation. And I moved to Lego. And I remember I had 2 interviews. And the second one, I had to convince the vice president. He said, okay, you're telling me, we have a team already here working on the stuff, but you're telling me if I hire you and take you and put you in this team, you are going to create the next best thing from Lego. I said, yep, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And he was like, oh, that's kind of like a ballsy statement right there. And I said, if I didn't believe that that's what I can do, I wouldn't be here, and I would not be doing it. I don't want to waste my time. I said, I believe I'm the kind of person you need to do something a bit different. So he took me at my word. This is a quote from a kind of funny thing. Later, when I'd done some of what I was about to do at Lego, I was interviewed by The Guardian, where I was obviously previously an employee. As this was a quote someone took out of when I was talking to them, and it was true because I said it. But usually that doesn't always translate into journalism. But I said that 2 of my great passions as a child were board games and Lego. Lego because it was infinite creativity. I could design anything I wanted. I watched a TV show and I made new toys based on that TV show with the Lego I had. Board games I loved because it brought people together. We got social, we kind of played, there was a challenge, all the rules were off, you could do incredible things. I loved both. And I really felt that kind of each part was lacking from the other. Board games weren't that creative, and Lego was not very social. So I thought, could we merge these things? And then I did something interesting when I got to look at that space, when I got to Lego. It wasn't the first thing I was working on, but it was something that started eating at me. And I said, okay, but if I'm going to turn Lego, which is a toy, into a game, what is a game? And I looked for something like this online in books, whatever sort of thing, and I couldn't find it, so I basically wrote it. And it was basically this understanding of these steps between, because when you look at the top and you say this is a game, it has conflict or competition, it has like challenge and puzzling, it has all these components of these things. But really to be like a proper game, you need all of these things. And it's the challenge is because a lot of people say, yeah, that's a game. And then I would say, actually, it's not. It's got aspects of game in it. It's game-like, or it's gamified, or whatever. But it's not a game because it doesn't have competition or conflict or sort of things. And it's a similar why athletics that I did before is not a game because you run in your lane and you run in a straight line. So there are other people there, which creates kind of some forms of competition, but you can't really interfere. So it's a competition. It's not a game because there's no interference. If while I'm running I could just stick an elbow out, then it would be a game, right? Or as Borat did later on, like just shoot the other guys as you're going down the running sort of field. Then it's a game, but if it's not, then it's not. And I said this was really important, I think, when you're trying to make something, understand it. And it's great to read books, but if the books don't have what you need, find what you need. So how could I turn a toy into a game? Oh, there's a big video there, but I'm going to skip that for the same time. So one of the key things I thought was I'm going to make a Lego game, and I said, okay, what's a Lego game? A card game has cards, a board game has board. And then people would say, oh, we've done Lego games before. And I said, no, that's a board with some cards. And then some like Lego images stamped on it. I said, that's not a board game. That's a board game, not a Lego game. So I said, one of those quick statements you say, I said, even the dice needs to be Lego. And they were like, really? Well, what does that mean? I was like, oh, okay. So I built the one on the left, but of course it didn't roll at all. And so I walked over and I said, like, well, I still think you want to be able to put these, it doesn't want to be any bigger than the 2x2 piece here, to put those on it. So I already fixed the size pretty quick. And I said, but then you want to be able to build on it. And the first thing they said is, that'll never happen. And I said, what? And they said, well, it's illegal at Lego to have an element that has studs on all sides. I said, what do you mean it's illegal to have an element? So they said, no, it's the design policy. It cannot be done. It's banned. I said, okay, well, let's forget that for a minute. And so what I immediately found is we're not making a Lego element. We're making a Lego dice. It's a Lego dice that is compatible with Lego elements, but it's not a Lego element. Of course it is, but it's all about how you communicate. So that was in that case, maybe. So we did some quick SLA prototypes. That one you see in the middle was made in like 1 day, 2 days. And then it took about another 15 months to perfect the one on the right. And it was the most complex, most expensive molding machine that we'd ever made. But it gave us, with that one new element, we made an entirely new product line. And one of the key things that you'll see coming through there is that when I made these things, it was about build, play, but also change. So one of the key aspects I put into the line that we did here is that it was the idea that these were starting points for kids. Not only could they be social, but remember, they needed to be creative. So the idea with all of these games was that you started with a base set of rules, you explored that, you played that, you understood that, and by building the game, kids really gained a quick understanding. And actually what was really interesting was that they would turn around and say, do you want to play my game? Not the game, or not Monopoly, or whatever sort of thing, my game. And it was their game, firstly, because they had built it. When you opened the box, it wasn't there, you had to construct it. And then furthermore, because by constructing it, they felt they understood it. So then when I asked them to change the bits, and of course the dice, take a side off the dice and put a different color there. It's a new game, right? Move some of the pieces around, because you can, because they're all movable. New game, so this idea, so it was this challenge of them to sort of just change one thing at a time, and you can start to make it your own, and it definitely worked. Also got to work with a bunch of fun IPs in later years. That was interesting too, but we'll jump that for now. One of my really fun things, so talking about board games, which I loved, I also loved Dungeons & Dragons, role play, all that kind of stuff. So after I'd managed to sell in the original game thing, I was like, hey, how about we do some Dungeons & Dragons for kids? Of course, I wanted to do like this one on the right. That was one of the concept work from Thomas, one of the guys I'd hired in at the time. Of course, so this was all our kind of starting stuff. Of course, it gets a bit watered down as you go along, but this was pretty much where we ended up. So we had these board games, we had like an online game that you could play to learn how to play the game. One of the greatest things we discovered was that the single biggest challenge to making a game is the rules, and it's not even writing the rules, it's communicating them. Monopoly is the single biggest game in the world, and two reasons. One, awareness, everybody knows about it. It's got something like 93, 96% awareness. No one else can even touch that, no one else can come close. And that's why it's always up top there, because it's not the best game, it's just the best well-known. And secondly, you can always say, I don't know how to play this thing. Do you know how to play this thing? And the chances are that someone else has played the game, and so you actually never have to read the rules. People are horrified to discover, if you look at the Monopoly rules, it's about 9 pages long. People will say, when you make a game, they go, why can't you make it simple like Monopoly? And I'm like, my game has 1 page of rules. They have 9 pages. What do you mean, make it simpler? They just imagine this game is simple, but it's not. And then going on, I then had some real fun having done that. We were the second biggest children's children's game manufacturer in the world after 15 months. We won Games Retailer of the Year in the US at Toys R Us, beating Hasbro. They didn't like that. So we had a lot of success with it. But later, I wanted to try something else, which was to take game back to toy. And so that was where I was now moving into the digital world. Minecraft existed, and I love Minecraft for existing. Everyone says, weren't they a big threat or to Lego? I don't think so. I think they reminded people that creativity is awesome. And secondly, they gave me this vehicle where I was trying to sell creativity in creative gaming, and they gave me something to say, well, we need to do it now because these guys are doing it. So I went on and we later came to the point where with TT Games we made Lego Worlds. And again, if you can see the text there in the sentence I wanted to pull out, explore, discover, create, and together. So again, it's the same feeling and the same inspiration I wanted to create. With this game, everything is made of Lego, and you can remake the entire world. You can do anything. If you haven't tried it, give it a try. The idea is like limitless creative possibilities. We have a video.
Peggy 7. Welcome to a new kind of Lego game, where anything is possible. Your world. Your adventure. Build anything. Do anything. Go anywhere. With friends in either split screen or online, and become a master builder. Welcome to Lego Worlds.
Sorry, jumped one. Let's get back one. So did Lego Worlds. We launched on Steam, which we'd never done before. I kind of said we need to learn how to do this iteratively. This was my first video game, by the way. So I kind of took that kind of general sense of ambition I have. The first video game I wanted to do was to try and take on the most successful video game of all time. With Lego Worlds, okay, I didn't believe I was going to beat Minecraft, but that was kind of already my benchmark that I was aiming at. I should at least be trying to do that. But it doesn't always have to be bigger, isn't always better. So this is a game that you can get on Google Play early access right now. We're just hopefully going to come out of early access into iOS and others in the next few weeks. But this was an idea about saying, how can we get more creativity to more people? And we've made this great game, and it's on PS4 and the other things, but not everyone's got that. So I wanted to put something that you could have on your phone, build on your phone, build anywhere. So that was something we worked on. But again, it's just a small team, like 3 people, 4 people. I did all the icon, I did all the art, I did all the models, I did all the UI. Not because I'm some kind of prima donna type sort of thing, it's because we had this idea and we wanted to execute it. And to do the normal system, it's like you have to book the art team like 6 months or a year in advance. And when I don't want to wait 6 months or a year for an icon or something, then I just do it. It can always be changed by an expert later. So I just wanted to get it made, get it out there, get it understanding kind of what people will do with it, what's right about it, what's wrong about it. So here, now you can see in the center phase, again, so you can build, you can have fun building little Lego sets where you get to follow the instructions. But even then, I don't tell you exactly what brick goes next. You have to do a little bit of working it out, and that's on purpose. And secondly, here, with this one, you can actually create, you can make your own sets and save them and share them and so forth. So really about kind of, giving you something to play with, but not a blank canvas, and then actually giving you some sort of little tools that you can do to kind of make your own creativity. And everything's trying to push you to make that own creativity. And then people say, okay, but what's the game? It's like, no, there is no game. You just build stuff. And there'd always been that thing, even inside Lego, sometimes say like, but that can't be enough, or like stuff has to explode, and then the guy runs in, and then what's the epic story and that sort of stuff. I said, no, sometimes it can be really calm. It can be really simple. You can just create. And I needed to prove that, so that was one of the things that we did. This is another, working in VR now, giving some simple ways to just customize, and then some ways again to build brick by brick and make your models. And then the characters that you make come to life and interact with the other characters. So once again, people would call it a game. I prefer to call it like an experience because there's no way to win. There's no competing. There's no multiplayer. It's just making toys, but these toys now come to life and run around your table in a virtual environment. And it's got that toy-like beauty. And no, it won't win Best Game of the Year because it's not trying to do that. It's trying to get people to create. How can you use those different tools that you can provide people with that will get them to actually make something of their own? Because when you kind of have that moment where you make something creative and you're really proud of it, that's when you come alive. It's that moment of magic that many of you guys here get to have all the time when you make your drawings or you make your products. A lot of people don't get to experience that a lot of the time. And that leads me on to something that then came to my attention that is quite close to my heart, and I was kind of pretty horrified to discover. And when I say discover, I didn't do all the research, I just read the research. And what that about is the creativity crisis. I don't know if any of you have read about it. It's a researcher I mentioned in a second, Dr. Kim, who basically has done some surveys in the US in particular. So it's not necessarily a US exclusive problem, which it might seem in some of the slides. It's just that's where the research was done. So it's only talking about that where the research was done. And I kind of felt, wow, do you know what? Creativity needs our help. There's this context here where with intelligence, because we all get slowly smarter, so your kids are a little bit smarter than you, and as an average. So our intelligence, our way of sharing information, all these wonderful things we do, helps keeping people getting smarter and smarter. It just wasn't happening for creativity. We were not getting better and better. We were getting worse and worse. And actually, over the period covered that the research had done, creativity had declined 80%. 80%. For me, that's just a staggering figure. And you'd think, like, how is not everybody talking about this and sort of thing? Well, of course, the information was first kind of revealed in 2011. There was kind of some other things going on in the world at that time. So I think that maybe that's what kind of, not swept it under the carpet, but just people just had other things to worry about. Some of the things that also you can see here, pulling out a few of the slides from Dr. Kim's report here, if you look at the graph, the declines in, for example, what they call outbox thinking. So all these tests, all these things are discovered through the Torrance test, but this is your fluid, your original thinking. So people have less ideas that are open-ended, or that they can less kind of solve problems or challenges, fewer unique ideas. They kind of go with kind of prescribed things. And honestly, I just saw that line, and I was like, oh my God. It continues. So this is about elaboration and simplicity. You think, you mean you can read the words, less depth, less focus, and they think in black and white terms, not in shades of grey. And lastly, we know also how this is affecting other things in politics and other things, but actually basically they're less open to new ideas, new people, differences in opinion than kind of in previous decades. And you can almost see before we had, in this term here, there was a period of kind of enlightenment, right? From 1990 kind of going up, and then now this decline. And if the other lines are something to follow that decline, we don't know how far it's going to fall. So I really felt like, okay, there's this importance of creativity, and you can see that actually the correlation. This is all fact. That the more creative you are as a child, the you're 3 times more likely to kind of basically succeed in life or to do something amazing or original or kind of things. And the definition of creativity is here, but I think that what we say is, look how hard we try to kind of push like IQ or intelligence or what we believe we drive in kids, and yet there's like firm data to present that actually, like, if your kid is creative, they're 3 times more likely to succeed, and yet we're crushing creativity in schools and pretty much everywhere. I really felt like that, what can we do about this? We all know that most people get paralyzed by like a blank page, and really kind of, I see it as my job to help people to kind of basically get beyond that. So in all the stuff I try to do, I try to get you to be creative, and I know that I can't just go, here's a box of Lego bricks, you're awesome, go do, because most people just stare at it. I mean, we've done enough research, so they don't know what to do. So you need to help pull them in, and you need to not do everything for them, because we sure as hell know that doesn't make you a creative individual. So it's finding that difficult barrier between. And so that's what took me into saying, I wanted to really kind of start moving into teaching kids how to design the games. And I kind of looked back, and as I said, and really found that I'd kind of always been trying to do that, actually. But I said, look, what can I do to step it up? So I went to the local school where my kids are, and my eldest was 7. And so I went into his class, and he's always making games. And they had said, so I have to say here, I didn't come up with the idea in the context of things. What I mean by that is, he said to his teacher, hey, we've got 2 weeks. They said, you've got 2 weeks left at the end of school before summer. What do you want to do? And somebody said, let's make games like Cephas does. And he was like, yeah. And then the teacher was like, then they turned around, how do we make games? And she was like, And then Cephas said, my dad will come and teach us. And so literally when I picked him up from school that day, he said, apparently you're going to come and teach the kids how to make games. And I was like, I am? And he was like, yeah, you are. And I was like, okay, I am. So that was Friday. Saturday morning I got up and I made these slides, the ones you're about to see. On Monday morning I went in and I taught the kids how to play games, make games. So I'm going to share that with you because it was a real exercise in simplicity, and it was the first time I was communicating not to an audience of people that kind of knew what they're doing or trying to sell something with the business, but actually just talk to 7-year-old kids and try and hold their attention for 20 minutes and actually teach them something that they could instantly use. So I said to the kids, I said, what do you need to play a game? And I asked them, and they were saying, let's put some hands up here. So what do you need to play a game, guys, girls? Yell it out. Come on, yes? Challenge, yeah? Something else? Opponents, yes? And we'll go on, but the kids basically were throwing stuff out, and there was a lot of kind of feedback, so immediately involved them in the conversation. They were just throwing stuff out. And I said, yeah, those are all really good things. I said, but what if we kind of come down to the simplest things you need is you need some rules, you need some people, because we already determined earlier that a game, a proper game is a multiplayer experience. You need usually, but not always, some playing pieces, but that's often the case, and particularly the kind of stuff that the kids were going to do. So that's pretty much all you need. So how do you get started? And I said to the kid, there's 3 things that you're going to try and do now. You're going to try and find an audience, and this could be like boys 6 to 9, it's the kids in your class, it's the kids in the next class. You're going to try and find a kind of something you're going to make for them. Maybe you're going to make them a board game, or you're going to make them a card game, or you're going to make us like a role-playing game, you're going to make something. You need to find how are you going to make that fun, and that could be mechanics. It's about blocking the other person from doing what they're trying to do, or it's about a race, and they could understand that. And I said, and then you probably, once you've got past that, you're going to end up by putting a bit of a theme on it, like a hero's quest or ancient Greece. And some people actually start with the theme. I want to make a hero game about ancient Greece, and then they go the other way. Everybody comes in from a different point, but you need to cover these things off. You need to know who you're making it for. The audience is a very important part. So that's why I said first. I said, so first, you need to know who are you designing for. If you say yourself, you're still at least going to need to find one other person to play the game with. So it's not good enough to just be yourself. You need a bigger group than that. Ideally, you want like 6 to 8, and ideally you want like a bigger audience. But for the kids here, I said, so if you can find 4 or 5 or 6 people that like what you're selling, then you've got an audience. You've got someone to make it for. Talk to them. What kind of games do they like to play? Don't stop at your first. I've got this idea and go with it. Talk to people. Find out as much information as you can. Do a bit of research. What do they like to play? What are they currently playing? What are their favorite games? Get some information. And then combine that with what kind of game do you want to make? Because if your research says, all of these kids love Pokemon, it's trading card games, that's all they love. If you hate those things, don't go and make a trading card game. It's not enough to say, yeah, but we did the research and that's what that audience want. No. Then you need to find a different audience. Because if you don't try to make something that you don't believe in, that you're not passionate about, that you don't love, that will never go well. So you have to combine that with what you want to make. So you've got an audience that wants to, hey, they want to make a trading card game. I love trading card games. I want to make a trading card game. Now you've got to fit. And then at some point you'll get along to like, this is my kind of blank box, so I'm working on my game sort of bit. But at the back of my mind, I'm always thinking like, is there like a theme that might fit to my game, might enhance my game? Because a great theme can really add something flavor to it, but a bad theme can actually detract from it. I made this really fun game in my early Lego games days, which I'll tell you now because it was a really good learning lesson. Made it with basic bricks and mechanics. It was all about kind of trying to get rid of all your pieces, placing them into kind of these kind of areas or silos, and you could put them onto other people's, and then the things went away. You could kind of steal, you could swap around. It was a lot of fun. It tested really, really well, and then gave it to some of the model guys, and one of them kind of built this kind of them as rocket ships. And the model looked like incredible. And I was like, okay, well, the game was like really, really fun. The model looks like incredible. We've got a winner on our hands here. And we sent it out to test, and it came in last, like dead last. And we were like, what happened there? So we went and we talked to sort of thing. We played back the tapes. We looked at the reviews. And the theme had not fit the story of the thing, because basically in the game, you're building on other people's rockets, because then when they launch it, they take your goods and cargo away for you. So that's great. So stick stuff wherever you can to get rid of it. And sometimes you have to steal stuff, right? And the kids went, spacemen don't steal. So no kid had ever like stolen. So when they would roll the dice and all they can do is steal, they'd go, oh, and just pass it. They'd skip their turn. And basically, and then when they were building on the rockets, it was like, hey, you can put it there. No, that's his rocket. I'm building on my rocket. This is my rocket. And you're like, oh, but the game is just about getting rid of you. And so this space theme had completely killed. They now didn't apply any of the rules or any of the mechanics. So what seemed like great gameplay mechanics and a great theme actually ended up as disaster. So these things you need to find a theme that fits and enhances what you do. And again, you know it here from your own sort of stuff. It's really tough to do these things. You're making something that is a social multiplayer experience. Don't do it alone. Okay? You're not going to find that magic that you need in a social player game if you're doing it all alone. It needs to be a social experience in itself, in the process, in the design process, in order to be social fun too. And then I decided to do some quick ways to make kids understand, and also for me to understand, what could they understand? What did they know? So I said, okay, here's a game. The aim of the game is to win the European Championships. Of course, they were playing at the time, so it was a good fit. In a penalty shootout. He said, you need 2 players and a coin. And I got 2 players up to the kids from thing, and I gave them a coin. And basically, they flipped the coin, and you see, okay, oh, heads, okay, that was a shot. And then the other kid flips the coin and sees if he can save it. They have like 5 shots, you tally it up, and you see who's the winner. And like everyone got it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is a slightly different version of the game. Okay, so now it's the same aim of the game, it's the same theme, but now we've introduced a cup. And basically, you place the cup down, and you have to throw the coin, yes, into the cup. If it goes in the cup, that's a goal, right? You have 5 shots sort of thing. So that was pretty simple. They all got that. But now I asked them a question. I said, okay, the 2 games we just tried, I'm going to ask you to say, okay, which of them was a luck game, and which of them was a skill game? And yellow being the first game, and blue being the second game. And what was really interesting then was I had a pretty much split set of hands. So when I said, okay, was the first game luck or skill? Like it was like maybe 60-40, but like, so who thought it was luck? And like half the class put their hand up. Who thought it was skill? The other half. And then pretty much the same for the second one. So what you kind of thought was like almost as simple as you could make them understand between luck and skill, and 50% of them didn't get it. So I said, okay, first one was luck, the second one was skill. And I said, but the best games, the most successful games, the one you should try and make, have a balance of the 2. So they have some aspects of luck and some aspects of skill. And there's a reason for that. I don't know if you ever played, just play that coin game, the luck game. At some point you realize, this is just lucky. You're either lucky or I'm not lucky. You quickly find the fun ends. The skill game, you quickly find out that one of you is just better than the other person. And once you determine that game also ends, because it's like, do you want to play again? No, you've won the last 5. You're going to win the next 5. Game's over. So you need to combine the 2. So I just showed them how simple that can be. I said, we start with the cup game, but now we add one bit. If the shot goes in, the other person takes the coin out of the cup and flips it. And if they get a tails, they've saved it. Now, for example, the skillful guy could get all 5 in the cup, but the lucky guy could basically save all of them with a bit of luck and get 1 in and win. So now at least you always have a chance, no matter what the odds. And that becomes an interesting thing, and you can play the same people over and over again, and it will be different winners. So that was just making them understand it, and they all got it. So then I said, really all you need to do to make a game is to take a sheet like this, which is why some of you have got this sheet now, and just write this down. What is the aim of your game? What do you need to set up the game? What do you need to do to play the game? Like the rules. I'll do the next slide for you. So this is what you're trying to do. But I said, but there's something that you mustn't forget, and that's the last one. Is like, what's the magic? Why is it fun? And people say, because winning is fun, and I won, it's fun. I said, no, that's not enough. That's like saying the coin toss game is fun. Winning is always fun, but the best games are when you won even when you didn't. So you had fun even when you didn't win. And that's always what you should be aiming for. When you're trying to develop something, the games where you have, like not just mine, but when I've kind of brought a game home and I've played it with my kids, if one of my kids loses 5 times straight at a game and then goes, that game is awesome, then you go, that game really is awesome, and that's going into like the best game sort of thing. If a kid can take a pummeling 5 times and still go, that's one of my favorite games, that game is incredible, right? That's what you're looking for, because it's always fun to win. So that's not a definition of a good game. Then you say, yeah, you can't design or write a game in 1 page. So I just gave an example. So this is my Lego Maze game, one of the games I did. And those are the rules. That's not a condensed form of it. That is all the rules that there are in the game. That one went on to sell a few 100,000 copies and win some awards. And we had a lot of fun with that, and it's still fun to play now. So you can do it. But you need to test your ideas. The first thing you come up with won't always be the best. You need to iterate. You need to kind of try it out, find out what's wrong, find out how I can improve it, play it with people, see what they love, see what they don't love, see what's really working. And I gave them a sheet that say, you can use to help. The simple tools you can use to help you with that. Just ask people questions. So afterwards say, so how long did the game take? Oh, it seemed to take about 20 minutes. Was that too long? Did I feel like too short? How difficult was it? Sometimes it can be too easy, or it can be too hard. And there are just a few slides here that you can start to kind of, okay, it was a bit hard, or it was a bit sort of this, and you can start moving those sliders and just really try and get to the magic of the game. But only change one thing at a time, because otherwise you can't know what you've done. You can't know what you've changed. It's like if you're doing a cooking recipe and you say, I'm going to add a little bit of extra salt, and then you say, if you just go, and this, and this, and then chuck this in, there's this. Even if it tastes great, you have no idea what you did. You've no idea what worked, and you've no idea, therefore, or no ability, therefore, to reproduce that magic. So you need to experiment, and I talked to the same with the kids in all the games we had. At the back of the rules where it would say, now change it, it would say, only change one thing and see what that does, and then either keep that thing or take that thing back out and move forward. And most of all, have fun. Not just when you're playing the game, but when you're making the game. If you're not having fun, it's not going to be fun. And I think that for me is true of everything I do and the way I approach it. And so I also, listening to a couple of the great talkers around here said this, that you only remember about 3% or 4% of what you hear when someone presents to you, particularly for an hour and a half. But if you guys now take the next 5 minutes to start writing something down on those sheets you've got. If you haven't got an immediate thing, grab the people next to you. That will help you to kind of anchor some of that thoughts, and it will take you something away that you can start playing with and go forward, because it's a great exercise to do. Even if you have no desire to be like a game designer, it's a great exercise to do. We need to do these creative exercises to challenge ourselves. So if you think, I can't do a game, anyone can do a game, right? Not everyone will do a great game, but you can do a game, and even if it's not a great game, you'll have learned a lot. So I challenge you to try and do it. I challenge you to test yourself. Even those at home, hopefully you've got the screens, or you can scroll back, print it out, have a go at it. But again, don't do it alone. Grab someone, find someone to do it with you. And you don't have to worry about like how great the art is, or how great the kind of things are, or how great the mechanics. Take bits, try bits, use bits. The fun is in the experimentation and the learning. So I've got a bit of time left, but I kind of wanted to say at this point, does anybody want to kind of ask any questions to some of the factors I did? I can dive a little bit more into some of the areas, or you can just have some time to make some games. Yes? Oh, wait, there's a mic coming, I think.
I I'm also concerned about the creativity crisis. I wanted to ask your opinion because I have a theory, and I wanted to ask someone who knows. I think that creativity usually comes out of two things: boredom and challenge. If life presents challenge, if life is difficult, if you're bored, you have to make your own games. Because I was thinking in my youth, we had television we had 2 channels from 6 p.m.
Yeah.
We didn't have 24 hours channels with all the cartoons.
Yeah. The Disney Hour, maybe.
Yeah. We had to make our own games, and I've seen that people that don't have the resources, they get creative.
Yes.
I wanted to hear what you think about it.
I definitely agree. I think when people talk about this, I didn't want to say it up front because I don't want to say and here's the answer. I think we all need to find the answer, but I certainly think there are contributing influences. I think that people, not just children today, although they said some of the steepest decline is in children, again, I agree with you that there's something about kind of striving, there's something about kind of filling that void. I definitely made a lot of games when I was a kid because I went to the game shop and there was no new games out yet. So we cannibalized some of the ones we already had and made new ones. If there'd always been a new game every time I went to the shop, I'd have probably just continued buying the new games and learning and playing those ones. So I agree, scarcity is something that's important. Because when there's scarcity, you seek to fill the void, right? And at the moment now, kids have Netflix and they have YouTube. It's infinite. They will never consume all that content. It goes on forever. They have games like Minecraft and other stuff that, although wonderful, are basically infinite. They also have, the App Store. So there's basically almost like an infinite number now of free games for them to play. So that hunger, that desire to have to do something yourself is definitely going to be lessened when you can just be entertained. And that's what I said, there's so much entertainment out there, and the quality of it actually now is so high, particularly because of the skills of some of the people like you see at THU. So the games are great. The TV shows on like HBO and everything are great. The cartoons are just great. Everything is so good. You constantly replete. You know what I mean? It's like, when would you ever get around to cooking if there was like amazing food trucks that just showed up like every half hour, like all day, every day? You'd just be like, ooh, that looks good. Ooh, that looks good. And then suddenly, if the food trucks stop, you're going to starve because you've never actually got round to ever cooking or understanding even like what food is or how to put it together or whatever. And my big worry is that if this creativity crisis, because we're all here because we are the creatives, we've survived what we've had to go through, we've risen above, we're doing great things. But I think the worry is about the future generations, because if that curve is to be taken at face value, then there's going to be a void coming. And you can say, hey, great, more jobs for me. Whew, yeah, no competition. I very much go the other way and say, who's going to solve these great problems that we're going to have in terms of like water, hunger, all these sort of things? How are we going to solve the problems that the world and society and stuff keeps throwing at us if people have lost those abilities that you saw up there, the ability to think creatively, the ability to problem solve? And that 80% decline is across. And again, it's just the US. I'd love to see how things are going in the rest of the world. Fortunately, I think places like China and India and stuff have reversed, or they're reversing that trend. They very much kind of like held it all down, and now it's opening up. Maybe they'll fill the void. But I don't think we should ever turn around and say, okay, write off the US, and then we're just like, there's plenty of other countries. I would want to say, how can we be sure that we stop it in the US, and B, that we actually make sure it doesn't happen anywhere else? And I think that is on all of us. I think we're here to teach each other at THU. But we also need to go away and say, how can we teach others? How can we help other people be creative? And it doesn't have to be like geniuses. We don't have to try and take them to the top level. We just need to allow them to get beyond that blank page. Everyone is born creative. And one last thing you'd say, sorry it's gone on a bit, but I said the other thing I believe is fear. It's one of the things that they've proven, like we are not born with fear. Fear does not exist, right? We teach fear, right? There's a lot of things you are born with that are instinctive. Fear is not one of them, right? That's all taught. A kid that is born, he is afraid of nothing, absolutely nothing. He doesn't even know fear exists. We teach them fear. We say, oh, don't do that. Oh, hey, don't touch that. Hey, that's hot. That's hot. Oh, edge, danger. That's why we do that so much as parents, basically, because we're teaching them. We're trying to look after them, but we're also teaching them fear, right? And we need to be careful of that. You need to find that right balance with your kids, with all kids, actually, to sort of make them understand the possibilities, their limitations, but not in a way that actually makes them feel limited, right? So it's to say, hey, not don't go near there. It's like, you have to be careful near places like that, because like if you jump down, because they still might, you might hurt yourself. Maybe you won't, but maybe you will. So maybe you want to find that out, maybe you don't. We have to try and find new ways to talk about this. And I find that like there are some countries that are still pretty great with this, and there are some countries that are really bad with this. Some places just seem to just teach fear, and I think that's the worst thing that you can teach people. You need to teach people understanding. You need to teach people about possibilities, about what they can do, to help them find their potential, and not teach them fear. So, sorry. I wanted to leave that on screen while people at home. So, sorry. So thanks very much. But yeah, I would say the greatest one is fear. Any other questions? Of course.
The follow-up question was, as a parent, should we have constraints about the exposure to entertainment so we can develop the creativity?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that I had a balance there. So I saw the wonders of the iPad, the iPhone, smartphone, all these things, and I very much let my kids have full access, unfettered access from like 12 months, 18 months. As soon as they could touch the thing, I gave them one. But it was never special. It was just like, here's a thing, it's another toy. And they played with it, and they didn't play with it, and they did all the bits, sort of things like that. But the second I saw there being any kind of dependency, when it became like the toy type sort of thing, I just took it away. I just said like, hey, it's broken now. And now, for example, we only do video games on a Saturday morning for a few hours, even though I'm basically work in a video games department and make video games. My kids only get to play video games for like 4 or 5 hours on a Saturday morning. And it's not to say that because video games are bad, I just need to leave the space in the room. The school is a busy day. They need room to breathe. And first they were just like, ah, and then they were like, is that a board game? Oh, well, there's my pencils. And now basically it's not a problem. So I would say, first I didn't want it to be special. You know, I certainly, for example, knew people that had, had those kind of like bans, like they've never been allowed chocolate or video games when they were a kid, and they went to university and just ate chocolate and played video games, and like just 24/7. And so you're like going, oh yeah, that's not, you should like eat a bit less. They're like, are you kidding? I never got to eat this stuff. Or like, just, so I kind of felt if I'm too harsh on these things, I'll create like a vacuum, and they'll fill that vacuum in a bad way. So I've tried to kind of find that balance before where it's and again, find a reason, like why is it only Saturday mornings? And I just say, I know how you are. When you get playing your game, you really want to play. So you need some hours to do that. And we can't just, there's no room. There's no room to fit that in during the week. So find ways to talk about it, which is not just like, I'm dad, and I'm going to say no. Don't say no, say why. Certainly my kids follow my footsteps. I'm now also trying to teach the school through my kids to understand creative kids, because my kids don't do what they're told, ever. I get called into the school and they're like, we need to talk about your son, Cephas. I'm like, which one? And they're like, okay, this one's Maximus. Okay, Maximus today. And I said, okay, what's the problem? And they said, well, he won't do what he's told. And I said, well, what was it that you asked him to do? And they said, oh, well, it was like to put this thing. And I said, well, and what did he say why he wouldn't do it? And they said, well, he said he hadn't finished the book yet. I said, well, then you know why he didn't want to give you the book back, because he hadn't finished the book back. I said, yeah, but I told him to give me the book. And I said, but you didn't explain to him why he couldn't finish the book. You just said, give me the book. And he was like, I will, once I've finished. And so usually with these contexts of things, it's about understanding kind of like the why and going just one step further. And I mean, the school's been fantastic. They really have worked with them, sort of thing. But it's helping them to understand that that's not him being disobedient. He just didn't understand that you couldn't wait like 3 more minutes, let him finish the book or type sort of thing. They're kids. They don't understand these things at this point right now. They don't understand that like other people want to be on a schedule or all these type of things. You have to help them to do these things. And when I say help them, I don't mean help him to understand that when she says give him the book, give him the book. No. I'm talking to the teacher. I'm saying, you need to learn how to talk to my kid. He doesn't need to learn how to follow what you do when you yell, when you say stuff to him. You need to turn to say, Maximus, I know you want to finish the book, but we need to go to the PE class now. How about we put a bookmark in it and save it? And he'll go, that makes sense. Right? But give me the book, that's never going to work. And I said, there's no way that I'm going to teach him that or that he will ever respond to that. So you need to sort of work on these aspects about how how to understand people that are that way. And really, my kids are like me, they're problem solvers. So sometimes it bites me too, because I say, they say, let's go to Legoland today. And I say, oh yeah, we can't go to Legoland today. And they go, why? And I go, because it's raining. And they go, we'll put on raincoats. And I go, and the car's without petrol. We'll go get some petrol. And really, I'm just like really, really tired. And taking 3 kids on my own to Legoland for like 6 hours, it's just like, maybe I've had some work on, I'm just tired. And so eventually I have to go, Daddy's just really, really tired. And they go, oh, okay, well, Daddy, you have a lie down. We'll go do this sort of thing. And you're like, oh, why didn't I say that first? Because that they can understand. The whole like other thing, they don't not understand. They're not trying to get around you. They're trying to problem solve. You said we can't go to Legoland because of the rain. They'll go, I can solve that problem. Then you're like, initially they'll just go through that. So at school, when they turn around and go, hey, you can't do this. My kids just go into problem-solving mode, and the teachers don't even know what's going on. They're like, I can fix that. And they're like, no, I don't want you to fix that. I just want you to put your code on. I can fix that. And this is the context thing. So I said, if you understand that that's what they're trying to do, you can work with that. You can actually get them help. You can even go like, instead of going, all the kids are running around and we need to get them to PE class, get my kid to help you. Go, instead of like yelling at them, just go, Cephas, we need to get everyone to that. He'll go like, I can do that. Sort of thing. So this is they'll do this. Use creative people. Use problem solvers. Don't wonder why they don't conform or kind of follow what everyone else does, because they just want to do it differently, better, and they believe they can, and oftentimes they can. So just allow them. Give them the room to breathe. Give them the room to actually be creative and to express themselves.
You've been saying there's a creative crisis. Would you also say that there's a crisis of innovation, especially in terms of games? Because what I see is basically copies of copies, and also the market is kind of just eating it, and very original things sometimes don't make it.
I totally agree, but I think it leads back to the same things, right? It leads to the fact that we can see that people are less creative, right? So there's going to be less innovation. And secondly, that fear is growing, right? So when you're at your company or your kind of studio type sort of thing, you'll say, hey, let's do this, and immediately they'll go for the fear, right? They'll go, that might not work. That might cost a lot of money. That might upset these guys in this department. It's like fear first and foremost, and you have to work out how to kind of understand that, not go, this is just crazy, everyone's just scared. Trust me, everyone is scared, right? So what you need to try and do is try and understand that they are and assuage those fears. So what we need to do, my last talk was, you could probably watch it on the video, is about the art of the pitch. And the reason I was talking about that is to say, I've got to do most of the things I've ever wanted to do, simply because I was able to understand, I was able to empathize with not just the consumer, but with the person I had to convince to get to do that. And I come in with not like, hey, I want to do this. I'm like, okay, who are you? I'm like, this is what I'm thinking. I'm saying, like, what is your problem? Your problem is that you would love there to be more innovation, but you're really scared. That's your problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and take that fear away, right? And if I can take the fear away from you, then you will give me that space. And then by giving that space, you've taken the fear away all the way down the funnel. Because basically the guys below you, and they're always like, you're not going to allow us to do that. I can go, nope. Suppose the top guy, he says, not only can we do this, we have to do this. They're like, what? Fear gone, and then amazing stuff can happen. But that's how I see my job. My job is not to, you saw some bits here, make the art, do the bit, come up with the game, type of thing. I only do that if it's a means to an end. Like, we want to kind of, but also I see it as a responsibility. Like when I was doing the board game line and pitching that in, they said, you realize like people have pitched this like every couple of years for like the last like 10, 15 years. Every couple of years someone goes, let's do games. And I said, well, why has it never happened? They said, I don't know, it just never goes anywhere. And I was like, I kind of want to pitch games. And they said, okay, but trust me, this management guys, they've seen it so many times, pretty much if you pitch this and it doesn't go through, we'll never be able to pitch it again. Well, at least not for like 5, 10 years. And I was like, oh, okay. So like no pressure then. But I had to believe in that in context and actually believe to say that not only do I need to succeed, but now I can see even more reason to succeed because when you do something and you do something successful, it takes away fear, not just for the project, but actually you've shown that innovation works, right? So the fear for innovation lessens a little bit. So the more success I had, the more success other people, other departments, other people around were able to have because they could turn around and say, hey, but we did that there and that worked. And they go, yeah, that's hard to argue with. So that I see that as how I can help others in a way is that I can lead by example. I can try and show how to get stuff done. I can get stuff done. And when stuff happens, that's what opens doors, right? When, like Minecraft, I mean, Love those guys. Because Mojang, they did what we couldn't do. So prior to, lots of people have been trying to sell, let's do that kind of game. And it's like, sounds like way difficult and complex and risky sort of thing. They did it, and then we got to turn around and said, it's not just not risky, it needs to be done. They've got like millions and millions and millions of users. Like, what are you talking about? So then they were like, maybe. So then my next challenge became, okay, but if we give like millions of virtual Lego bricks away, so kid basically has infinite Lego bricks, why are they going to buy the plastic bricks anymore? Fear again, right? And I had to, unfortunately, again, Minecraft to the rescue, because at that time I would have used other arguments if I had to, but at that time I got to say, yeah, the problem with that is that Minecraft already exists. So if a kid wants like infinite bricks, he can already get it. The question is, do you want them playing with some of your infinite bricks or just the competitors? So basically I got to go forward, and I still had to win the pitch to make my vision of the game rather than some of the other ones on the table, but that was kind of taking that fear away from them. I said, like, it's beyond fear now. I said, like, the question is that's not on the table anymore, it's a different one. And then you create a different, sometimes you use fear as a weapon, right? So you say, do you want all of the kids playing with another brand? Fear, but now fear's to your advantage, right? Fear enabling innovation. So sometimes you can use it, but I hate to use it as a tool. I would always rather sell the opportunity, the possibility space. I don't like to use fear as a weapon. Great. Well, thank you very much. I know it was a small crowd, but I appreciated you guys coming along. I hope you took something away, and please grab me afterwards later. And on a personal note, I've had a recent family bad piece of news yesterday, so I was a bit concerned about how I'd be up here today, but thanks for kind of pulling me through that. I threw myself into it rather than kind of accepted the fear, right? I really thought I might break down horribly here, especially when I had the pictures up there of my mum. She just got diagnosed with cancer. But I think you just need to use these things for you and with you, and it doesn't mean the end. She had cancer 25 years ago. She beat it. Like I said, my father had the kind of quadruple heart bypass, and they said, you've got 5 years if you do the rules. He did none of them. 25 years later, he's rocking. So I don't believe these things are an end. They're just a new beginning. You just need to take adversity in your stride and look to the opportunities and push forward. So thank you very much.